So here with Janice Westcott, who's a realtor with White Realtor. She's been doing it for over a decade, helping both residential and commercial clients. Janice, I just want to ask you a couple questions in regards to how you help customers look for a location when they're searching for something for their new dessert shop.
It's important that they come in and they meet with me because I need to find out their wants and needs. It's not all that cut and dry. When they're driving around and they're looking at properties, they know their wants and needs. But when they come to me, I need to know that. Then I'll go on the multi-listing system, which I belong to, and every realtor does, and I'll find properties for them, and I'll give them a list of properties that are available, and then we can sit down and discuss whether one location works better for them or another.
And what do you need to know from your client? You mentioned knowing kind of what their wants and needs are. Are there specific things, square footage, neighborhoods that best help them?
Yes. It's important that they know their square footage, firstly, because we need to make sure that it's big enough, not that they move in and then 3 months later they realize they've outgrown the location. Secondly, we want to make sure that their parking needs are met, because we want to make sure that nobody is left out and that they can get all their customers in when they want their ice cream. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else. And thirdly, I think more importantly than anything is we want to make sure that when they open the business, that they're going to be able to draw the attention of their customers.
And how long would you say the process typically takes from when you first meet with a client to you can present locations to them to go and visit?
That depends on the buyer. If they know exactly what they're looking for and they can give me specific needs, then I have no problem finding them a property. If they're on the fence and they're not really sure about what their wants and needs are, it's going to take a little longer. And then we have the issue with the attorney. Attorneys have to be used in commercial purchases, and so what attorney they choose and how quickly they move is important.
Now, you mentioned commercial purchases. What about if a customer is just looking to rent a space? Does that process take shorter, longer, or about the same?
The negotiations are different in a lease. Typically, I would say it takes less time because we don't have to wait for closing, we don't have to wait for title and deed searches. So yeah, that's the answer to that question. It's definitely a shorter process.
So I have a lot of customers that come in here and they're looking for a spot, they're just driving around, or they're going on LoopNet or some of these sites. What's the difference between them doing their own legwork and bringing a professional like you into it?
Well, I know the market. I keep myself up on what is available and what is under contract. A lot of times these websites don't populate very quickly, so they may see something on a website that closed a month ago, and it takes time for them to go through it, where I already know what the market's like.
Is there key demographic information that you have as a realtor that you can provide your clients? For example, population, traffic counts, things that aren't readily available that somebody like you may be able to provide and help your clients?
I do have that information, but with technology the way it is, it's available online. I would say that the truest way to find out the best information is to go down to the local township, ask for a copy of the census report, because that's going to give you true numbers.
And what are the costs that someone might incur in using a realtor, whether they're purchasing a property or renting a property?
Well, in the state of New Jersey, which is where I practice, the buyer pays no closing costs when it comes to commission. The seller is responsible 100% for the commission. So in that respect, there is no cost to them. There is deed preparation, attorney's fees, and whatnot. The benefit of using a realtor as opposed to not is that if you don't have your own representation and you go and you find a property on your own, then you're more than likely going to use the seller's realtor. That seller, because of the way the agency is set up in the state of New Jersey, has to represent the seller first and foremost, and then you become their second obligation. So it's always better to have your own representation. Even if you find a property driving around or on the internet, don't call the realtor that is listing the property, because once you have that communication with them, because of procuring cause, they then own you and you won't be able to get your own representation.
So it's a conflict of interest essentially, they're gonna represent the seller's interest first and your interest as the leaser or buyer second.
Yes, exactly. Although you will have an attorney, but still in all, the attorney is not a realtor, and I've seen this time and time again. Attorneys are good at law, but they're not very good at real estate.
Are there any costs when somebody's looking to rent a property and they negotiate? Are there any costs in using a realtor to find that? Because technically they're not going to a closing, right? It's just signing a lease agreement.
Correct. And again, the seller is responsible for paying my commission, whether I'm hired by the seller or the buyer. The seller in the state of New Jersey, whether it be a lease or a purchase, is responsible for the commission.
So there's really no disadvantage to using a professional.
None at all. and it's a fallacy for people who and I get it all the time when people come to me, even with residential. They ask me, how much are you going to charge me? I cannot charge you anything because the law states that the seller has to pay unless it is something in the negotiation, and commissions can be negotiated.
And tell us, what's the current state of the commercial market for buying and leasing? After COVID, as we come out of COVID, you see seems like a lot of properties are open, a lot of the brick and mortar has opened up. Do you see a bevy of properties out there, or is it more than it used to be, less than it used to be?
It's a ton more. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of businesses that failed during COVID, and unfortunately, I blame that on the fact that their business plan wasn't all that solid to begin with. They had to have been hurting in order to fall apart. There are a lot of businesses that survived, but when it comes to the market, there's a number of properties that have come on the market because there were a number of businesses that just were not set up for being shut down for any period of time.
Do you see flexibility in the landlords as far as lower rents or lower purchase prices because of the huge amount of supply out there?
I don't. There's the negotiation factor is definitely bigger. It's easier to negotiate now because, again, these investors who have these properties were not looking to have vacant properties and pay property taxes on them. However, they know that the government has been giving out money and that it is available, so they're less apt to negotiate, but it's there. The possibility is there.
Do you see more, in my experience, as in a good market, right, where there's aren't stores closing down, those type A properties are less. But it seems to me like there's a lot more opportunities for those really, really choice properties.
There is a lot more opportunity for the choice properties, but I don't think it's changed as far as the negotiations. A person who owns a property is in it to make money. And whether the economy is good or we've gone through a COVID or whatnot, they still have a bottom line number that they're looking for, and they start at that number. It's possible to work them down, but that depends on your realtor.